Hello, good evening, and welcome to Tuesday Night Live here in the Honing Block. I am so happy to welcome you to tonight's show. We have a special show tonight, and we have a special guest tonight, and we are going to be talking about legacy. We're going to be talking about making an impact. Now, you're an entrepreneur, you're somebody who is setting up a business, you're somebody who is looking to make an impact as far as making money is concerned. But what happens beyond making money? Have you ever thought about or considered the legacy that you're leaving behind when it comes to the business that you're running? Have you thought about the implications on what a customer may think if you haven't really got any kind of core values running through your business? Or maybe your business is just simply buy and sell trade business. What things can you do beyond just the norm of your business transactions to create an impact and have an impact beyond, or leave a legacy beyond the years that you are on this earth? Well, tonight we have a privilege of having a special guest with us, and he is no other than Mr. Rodney Hinds. He is an editor and producer at The Voice newspaper, and he is somebody who has definitely left a legacy. He's been involved in media for over 35 years, and we have the privilege of picking his brain tonight regarding his legacy. He was recognized last year in with a Lifetime Achievement Award in the National Diversity Awards in Liverpool, and that was in 2019, September of last year. He's also an author. He's authored books like Black Pearls, Black Lions, and also 50 Great Jamaican Sports Stars. He's tried to make sure that his work in journalism isn't just the run-of-the-mill work, but he's trying to leave a legacy, one that has paved the way for many people, both within sport and also in journalism. So if you don't know about Rodney Hinds, watch these highlights and find out a bit more.
I'm going to ask everybody this. What's been some of the most significant work for you that's been carried out in the last 25 years?
I mean, Kick It Out isn't just about elite footballers racially abusing them on the field and then it gets all the headlines. They do so much great work in terms of education at grassroots level, and you can't really quantify that, but you know, that goes on and we have to applaud that. One of the greatest things that I think they've done in their 25 years, and there've been so many, is the Raise Your Game conference for me. It wouldn't necessarily seem as part of their agenda when they started 25 years ago, but that's how they've evolved and moved on. The fact that Raise Your Game sees 400 mentees get in and around 100 or so really good mentors and give them the real possibility, not a guarantee, of getting into the professional game of football that we all love, the beautiful game, but we also know it's a difficult and challenging arena to get in. So I would probably list that. I know it's a pretty new innovation, but I think the power of that, and as I said, I don't think when Lord Ousley set out his plan many moons ago that he saw maybe a Raise Your Game being held at a Premier League club gaining that sort of traction, but for me it's a big one.
Welcome, Mr. Rodney Hinds. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for the invite, and to all those listening, welcome. Stay safe and all that sort of good stuff.
Fantastic. And it was interesting watching that clip of you on Sky Sports talking about the Raheem Sterling incident that happened. That was at Stamford Bridge. I think it was 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And it's so interesting that right now we're kind of talking about the same issues. What are your thoughts on that, watching that back?
Disappointment, because I think I said in the clip, possibly we might be able to improve the scenario. And obviously with the George Floyd scenario only of last week, which has got global attention, we seem to be back to square one. And as I said at the time, in regards to the Raheem Sterling scenario, it is bigger than football. It's a societal problem, as the George Floyd scenario proved. So until you can deal with it in society, you can't possibly deal with it in football. So the Premier League, the Kick It Out organisations, Show Racism and the Red Card, those sorts of organisations, yeah, they can maybe tidy up and put some sanctions on the offenders. But then you're going to have a scenario like the George Floyd scenario. And as I said, and I'm very keen to say this, that while we look across the pond and we can see what's happening 4,000 miles away, we have our own issues here in the UK in terms of black people losing their lives, whether it be a Mark Duggan, a Sean Rigg up in Birmingham. I've worked for my newspaper for the best part of 20 years now. And while sport is my feature subject, sadly, I've had to report and understand and be privy to some of the information and how our black people are getting treated. And as I said, recent events just put it under the microscope in very clear perspective for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned George Floyd there. It really is like, it's quite tense out there, isn't it? I mean, the reality is just the way that life is. It's gone from one level of stress to another, level of tenseness. You know, first with the outbreak, then with the lockdown,
Yes.
and now there's racial tension.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I know, obviously, we're going to get into your story in a moment, but naturally, let's talk about the issue at hand. You know, it was announced today that due to the post-mortem study that actually it's been announced as homicide, something we all knew, that he was strangled to death. What are your initial thoughts on that?
Absolute horror. As I said, I've been in this trade for a little while, so I've seen a few things over the years at home and abroad. I just feel that enough's enough, isn't it, really? And I'll tell you why I say that is because the global outrage has been powerful. Not just black people supporting Black Lives Matter. We have people of all shades, descriptions, genders supporting this cause. Footballers taking the knee, as Mr. Kaepernick done in recent times. We've had support from all levels. People are actually speaking up and speaking out about this particular subject. But from my personal viewpoint, absolutely horrified. Listen, I was brought up in Hackney, East London. I've seen and been present when some police-related incidents have taken place, and they haven't been the greatest either. But I think what we saw on video the other day really took it to another level. And it's interesting, we did a recent opinion piece in The Voice, which really, the headline was, racism isn't getting any worse, it's just being filmed. And I think that's important now. With mobile phones and technology, we can record events, sadly, like this. These things have been sadly going on for years now. But the advent of the mobile phone means that they can be captured.
It's very true. That's very true, and it is very sad in a way that. Well, I guess it's sad, but the reality is, it is just the reality, isn't it? It's not necessarily a case of it being sad or. I think it depends really on the measure of progress that people feel has been made, right? So you've got the issue of changing behavior versus changing beliefs. And I feel that, yes, we've come a long way in changing behavior. People know how to behave more than they used to, but I'm not sure how much belief systems have changed.
I mean, you talk about changing behaviour, Ozzy, and I agree with you to a point, but we have, and it hasn't always resulted in death, but we've seen similar incidents to what happened in Minneapolis, haven't we? The Rodney Hinds scenario, we had the jogger going out not too long ago and losing his life as well. I think the day before or the day after the George Floyd killing, didn't we have the lady who was, to say the very least, was rude and racist in her behaviour to a guy that was just doing some bird watching? So how much has the behaviour changed? And as I said a few minutes ago, the fact that these sort of outlandish behaviour can be caught on video now doesn't seem to be a deterrent. I mean, what was that policeman thinking? You know, what was he thinking? You know, and to say the very least, they've got to throw the book at that policeman and the bystanding police officers who need to be charged as well. They were complicit in what they were doing. And a black man, innocently going about his business, has lost his life again.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And I think as far as criminal convictions is concerned, I believe that they've all been charged with homicide, I believe it is.
It's homicide. I mean, Mr. Chauvin, the man himself, who has got a third degree charge, I think it is.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
for me, that's ridiculous. That comes to like manslaughter for me. You know, it should be the first degree as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what I mean? But listen, I think that what we have now is a scenario where the world is watching to see what punishments are meted out to those police officers. And if it isn't deemed to be enough by certain people, there could be more protests. And clearly, you know, the US president has always been a little bit of a madman as far as most of us are concerned. Some of these comments continue to be so inflammatory. You know, what planet is this guy on? And this is the guy that's been hiding in the bunker, apparently, when some of these protests have been going on. But I think it's important that we look at the makeup of the protests in terms of the individuals. There are not just black people there. Yeah. Today was Blackout Tuesday, wasn't it, in terms of social media as well? And the plethora and the raft of support for this Black Lives Matter cause is powerful. And there's a whole heap of people, I think, now prepared to get behind this.
It's very true. I know that, you know, I posted today as well. I kind of did the whole blackout post as well. But on one of them, I actually added a comment, which I feel to me kind of maybe encapsulates somewhat of where certain people are right now. Because what I've said is, you know, certain things like this happen. And actually, there are people out there, black, white, from different backgrounds, that are actually in a happy place. They're absolutely fine. Everything, you know, they've managed to adjust to the lockdown. Things are in a good place. Maybe they balance themselves financially. And actually now they're in a position where they're happy. But clearly there are people out there that are not happy at all. And I think if we kind of take it away from this George Floyd scenario and just think about life in general, when actually you're in a good place and someone else comes to you and they're complaining about something, they're upset about something. It takes a lot for somebody to actually drop their happiness for a few moments, empathize to the point where the person actually feels listened to and understood before they can actually move on. And we know in situations like that, actually, more time, we don't empathize. Actually, we are frustrated that that person is complaining. We're angry that they're upset. And there's this cycle of an argument that comes in. And I kind of sense that is happening online now as well. You know, certain people, they just don't like to be told that things aren't good. They like knowing that everything's fine. Just keep quiet. Let's carry on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I mean, I think that you said at the top of the show, COVID-19, the subsequent issues of that, the lockdown, the subsequent issues of that, and now quite literally in our faces with this video of George Floyd killing. That's put people, that's got people's backs up. I'm probably underplaying a little bit. And the funny thing is, you know, even though lockdown has been eased, what you had on Sunday, if you just take Trafalgar Square in London as an example, you had people leaving their homes. And don't forget, we've still been told to stay alert, haven't we, in terms of this pandemic. But the frustration and anger of that video and George Floyd's killing meant that people left their homes, put social distancing to one side to some degree, because they needed to vent their anger. And I go full circle, when something as horrific as that killing takes place, nobody can put it in a can and say, oh, this is how you now need to behave, because it was there for the world to see, and people will make up their own minds in terms of how they protest about it.
It's very difficult times, isn't it? Very, very difficult times. I know that this kind of looking a bit into you and looking at your legacy and the things that you've achieved, it kind of seems to me like this is kind of in line with the things that you've kind of fought against, and not just in the kind of campaign sense, but you've actually proactively done things to actually stem the problem of racism, especially within sports. Do you mind sharing with us a few of the things that you've done over the years? Because, you know, as I said at the top of the show, I know that you've been in journalism for over 35 years. You've been at The Voice for, it's coming up to 20 years this October.
Years,
Is that right?
October, yeah. Yeah, 20 years. I mean, listen, I'm a writer. I like to express myself. I've wanted to do that from a very young age. My parents encouraged me from day one to read and write and express myself. I'm going to tell you now, and all those listening, I had no idea that I'd end up getting Lifetime Achievements Award. That was never the focus. Listen, African Caribbean backgrounds essentially was study your books, earn your education, and make the best of it, because you will need it to as some level of protection, and I've done that. To now be interviewing people like Venus and Serena Williams, Lennox Lewis, Usain Bolt, Thierry Henry, is mad for me, really. I think one of the things I would say about legacy, you probably can't create a legacy. You know, when you talk about my legacy, you know, it just seems very odd because I never set out for a legacy. But I think one of the things that you do need, and I've had it, and I continue to have it, is a passion for what you do. I think if you have a passion for what you do, that gets you through the difficult times. That gets you through the doubters. It gets you through when you go to a press box and, you know, you're covering whether it be athletics or football, and you're the only black journalist there, and you get funny looks, and you're probably not made to feel as welcome as the indigenous journos. It's the passion that get you through, Ozzy, at the end of the day. So I do a job that has given me something of a profile. As I said, I was born in Hackney, East London. So, I mean, listen, I'm coming from a very ordinary place. But what I did have was extraordinary parents who gave me fuel to see my ambitions through. So, yeah, I think the passion's important. The interviews have been a byproduct of that passion and staying in the game for a long time. But I would also like to say that equally, it's been great interviewing a lot of the people at grassroots level who don't have elite incomes and don't get on TV. And I sit down with them and I hear about their passions and their dreams and their goals and their knockbacks and how they continue and strive to keep going. And all I would say is I am essentially, having done this job for as long as I have, I'm essentially a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle, and those jigsaw puzzle pieces that make me up are actually belonging to the people that I've interviewed and shared quality time with. They have made me who I am because I've managed to take a little something from all of them over the years.
Yeah, of course, that's amazing. You mentioned some of the people that you interviewed there. I know I did a bit of research on us. So you've interviewed Viv Richards, and we're going to come back to something. I need to ask you a question. It's not a serious question at all, but I'm going to ask you in a second. You've interviewed, like, as you said, Lennox Lewis, Kobe Bryant. Is that right?
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant. Like you said, Thierry Henry, Jessica Ennis. And a number of people. Which is the most memorable interview and why? Out of all the top names that you've interviewed, what is the most memorable interview?
I have to invite you back on because I don't know if I can give you that right now. I mean, I think that you have to put Thierry Henry in there as a special guy. To sit down with a guy that was, for the want of a better term, Mr. Arsenal. If you think about Thierry Henry, he played in a team that went unbeaten during the season, won trophies left, right, and centre under Arsene Wenger. But just think about this for a moment. In that team were the likes of Sol Campbell, David Seaman, Robert Perez, Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira. And most of them, when they reflect or have reflected, and you ask them who was the special player, who was the catalyst in that superb Arsene Wenger team, they will say Thierry Henry. So sitting down with him was unbelievable because what TV and media types like me do, we build people up. He was such a regular guy. He was just so down to earth, with a Caribbean background as well. So we talked about the discipline that his mum would would insist upon, owed it all to his parents, very respectful guy. So to sit down with him in the Arsenal training ground many, many moons ago at the peak of his powers, I'll probably have to put that down as my most memorable so far.
Wow. Okay. So that's quite interesting, actually. I recently watched the documentary on Michael Jordan, and you saw the passion and the drive that he had. I've heard similar reports about Thierry in football, in terms of just not accepting substandard
No.
and driving people on. So is that the feel you got? It sounds like
Without doubt. And I was fortunate enough to cover most of Arsenal's games under Arsene Wenger, the Invincibles, this team that played football at a certain level. I mean, you got to understand, and I'll answer that question when I come back to it, if you like. Arsenal set the standard. I mean, I know that we have great teams now like Barcelona. We have great.
My mug is empty, but I have to hold out.
I can see where your allegiance is. So I've told the story that will keep you happy. When you think about Manchester City over the years under Guardiola, you think about the current Liverpool team at the moment. Arsenal set that standard, along with Manchester United, I believe, in terms of playing football a certain way. Certainly United under Sir Alex Ferguson. What I would say about Thierry, he didn't suffer fools. He demanded excellence all the time. And if you think about it, him demanding that and obviously getting it, and I think there were other characters like him in the team, like Vieira and Steven, Tony Adams and Steve Bold and Martin Keown at the time. When you think about it, it's only that passion for excellence that has allowed them to be and remain the invincibles that they are today. You don't set those sort of standards, and we both know, because we all love our football and all those watching, on any given day, you can lose a game of football in the Premier League or in the top flight. So to go unbeaten, and I do understand that the Premier League now is probably a stronger product than the Premier League that Arsenal was dominating back then. But to go 38 games unbeaten, it means that mentally you had to be on your game all the time. It meant that any challenges that came your way, you were prepared to overcome. So when you talk about legacy, they've left a legacy. And as I said before, what I've done, I've taken little snippets from people like him. I try to be excellent in everything I do. I don't always succeed, but if I don't succeed, I try again. I just try and make sure that the standards for myself and others around me professionally are as high as they can be, because I think that if you can achieve that, it means success for everybody.
Yeah, most definitely. I think this is, there's so many people that you hear the same story of that person who they've just got the vision and they see excellence only and they do not allow for anything less, and they just kind of drag everybody else with them. It seems just synonymous, whatever the industry, whether it's sports, technology,
right. in business,
yeah.
An interesting thing is that you get a lot of sports people attending and speaking at business events now.
Right.
You know, seminars. You know, like Chris Akabusi, the former athlete. He will go and talk to business leaders, etc., etc. And sometimes in reverse, we get business leaders coming to talk to sports teams as well. Listen, I think that what we've always got to remember, we're all human beings, we're all individual in our own way, but there's so much that actually binds us together, and we should never ever forget that. I mean, you touched on Kobe Bryant. I mean, God rest his soul now. And Kobe's loss back into January, even if you weren't a basketball fan, touched people's lives. And the reason for that is because with the LA Lakers, Kobe Bryant set standards that had only previously been matched by the great Michael Jordan. And even though he'd retired, I know the industry knows that Kobe Bryant was going to go on to be an even greater legend away from the court based on what he was going to do for the game, what he was going to do for players. So, as I said, passion creates excellence and then gives you a chance of some legacy.
That's excellent. That's brilliant. Before I get to my non-serious question, I'll ask you one more serious question. You've spoken about your interviews. You said your favorite interview or most memorable interview was with Thierry Henry. Now, again, I know that in your career, you've been on Sky Sports, you've been on the BBC, you've been on ITV, you've been on documentaries, you've written books, you've done all sorts, and you've received that Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, what I would ask you is, what do you feel has been the highlight of your career? So as a whole, so it might not even be an interview. It might be something that maybe the public didn't even see or know about. But
I mean,
what do you feel is the highlight of your
I
career?
think after 20 plus years, you're really trying to put me right in the corner, aren't you? to try and even give you just one would be challenging. I'll give you a couple if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Go
The
ahead.
fact that my mum and dad would read my work, that gives me a great sense of pride. Certainly London 2012. As I said, I'm from the East End of London. So to cover the Olympic Games on my home patch as such was superb. Super Saturday, Mo Farah, Jess Ennis, and I forget the other gentleman. I've forgotten his name, but it was the night that Great Britain won 3 gold medals. Mr. Rutherford, that was it, the triple jumper. He won gold on that Saturday night as well. That was memorable. But maybe the most glorious thing about London 2012 was Usain Bolt and the Jamaican track and field team. So there's some highlights. I think I can only say it was a privilege to cover Arsenal when they were at their peak of their powers. And maybe something a little bit offbeat. I had the pleasure and privilege of sitting down and spending quality time with Richard Williams. Who is Richard Williams? Well, he's the man and father to Serena and Venus Williams, the all-conquering sisters from Florida who have taken the tennis world by storm. So sitting down, spending time with him, listening to how, along with his wife, he made those 2 girls great. Once again, if you want to talk about legacy, that's legacy right there with 2 girls. So yeah, I think those would be amongst my highlights. I'm sure there's many more. I can't remember them all, but as I said, I use the word privilege. I think that what I do, most people would love to do if they're into sports, certainly. It always creates great conversation. Oh, what do you think about that? You know, I just always see this job as a privilege. I stay humble. But yeah, I've had some truly memorable highlights here.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay, I'm going to get to my not so serious question.
Go for it. Go for it.
I'm going to give you 60 seconds to convince me of what cricket is about. What is cricket about? Because I know there's people that watch from America as well, and they probably want to know the answer to this question. What's the big deal?
Cricket is known as the gentleman's game, right? And in many ways it's the total opposite of football, where football has this explosive nature. It just hooks you in for 90 minutes. Cricket has those explosive moments, but if it's a one-day game, maybe more so. But you can play a test match, England, say West Indies, England versus Australia for the Ashes, and you can play for 5 days and get no result. And I think that's what frustrates a lot of people, that after 5 days of cricket and action, you can still get a draw. Dare I say this, cricket is probably one of the sports you have to think about a little bit more. You have to get so familiar with the different terminologies and the rules. And that's why I've got to pay homage to my dad. We'd sit down endlessly watching cricket. Viv Richards, you mentioned him earlier on, the great West Indies cricket team of the past. I never picked up a book to learn anything about any sport. What I did, I watched the sport itself. I worked it out for myself. I had my dad with me who'd talk it through. Cricket, when it's played well, is entertaining. But for me, it will always play second fiddle to football. I don't know if that helps. But what's the thing? It's steeped in tradition in terms of Australia, the West Indies as well, and obviously England as well. And don't forget the West Indies cricket team, many, many moons ago, they've created their own legacy under Clive Lloyd, Viv Richards, great players who, once again, and I keep coming back to your original point, they've left a legacy. The team isn't that great now. I'll give you a little bit of breaking news. They're coming over to England to play test matches in July. They'd have to quarantine apparently for 14 days before that action gets underway, and there'll be no fans in the place whatsoever. So yeah, life life is undertaking a new normal right now.
Okay, yeah, it is definitely. I don't know if I'm any the wiser about cricket. I think I might stick to football,
Maybe,
stick to football and
maybe one day
basketball.
when it's safe, I'll take you to a game and you can see it for
Yeah,
yourself.
that'd be great.
Even that may not convince you, but at least you can say you tried it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Because to me, I kind of turn it on and it's over, but it's still
Yeah,
carrying on,
yeah,
and they're running, but they're
I
standing still.
understand.
So
I
I was,
understand.
like, yeah,
I've been watching it from about the age of 8 or 9.
right, okay,
That's a good while ago now. So I'm right up there in terms of learning. And there's even stuff that I still don't know about cricket. So
okay, okay, yeah, yeah. I
I
know
mean,
that is something. That's
yeah.
something. I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
what it is,
Yeah. That's a
but
score. That's a scoring. That's
okay,
a 4, and
yeah,
above the
yeah,
head is a 6.
okay,
What I would say, why football is probably more popular than cricket, is that there's 2 goals. You know when the ball's gone over the line. You see
thank you.
hugging and embracing.
Yep,
Very, very simple.
there you go, there you go.
Cricket is a million miles from that. Trust me.
100%. Yeah, I'm probably not as intelligent enough to get my head around, but I'll definitely try. I'll definitely try. Now, you mentioned Viv Richards, and I mentioned some of the people that you've interviewed. We're talking about legacy here. We're talking about what happens beyond business. My audience is people who are trying to start up businesses. They're thinking about creating their brand. They're thinking about all of these things: marketing, finance, getting funding, and all of the kind of nitty gritty. But I do feel, especially at a foundational stage, it's really important to think about ethos, values, legacy. What is going to be the bigger picture as to what you are known for within your industry, whatever it is. And there's a term called entrepreneur, and that is
Yeah.
used for someone who's actually in a job, but actually they've got an entrepreneurial streak. You strike me as an entrepreneur, someone who you could have just done your job over the years and just stick to doing your job, but actually no, you've authored books. Actually, you co-founded the Football Blacklist. You've actually done things to actually make an impact. And in regards to the books, they're not just kind of storybooks. Actually, it's the affirmative to what we're talking about with all of these problems with race, etc. This is kind of shining a light on the positive things that are happening in sport in some instances. Do you want to just talk us through kind of your mindset behind that, and not just sticking to the job and thinking, actually, no, I'm going to do something beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really good question. I think that one of the things I would definitely say, which ticks the box on that entrepreneurial list that you talked about, is revenue streams. Yeah, I mean, I don't know too many of us that are just happy with the one income.
This is it, yeah.
I certainly wasn't. It wasn't something that I set out to do, but obviously I've written books. So what I did, I just veered off to the left and to the right. I never left the industry that I was in and had made my reputation. I just looked at it at a slightly different angle. You talked a few moments ago about people starting up businesses and marketing. I had the privilege of interviewing a young man called Jay Williams from Hoodrich. Now, Hoodrich is a sort of hip lifestyle sports brand. Okay. Here's a guy who's no more than 23, 24, based in Birmingham. And when I interviewed him, he said, what you've got to do in whatever business that you want to get involved in, you've got to have your unique selling point, your USP. My unique selling point was sport. His was lifestyle, urban culture. So once again, it's that passion, the passion for something that you love and you enjoy. It then allows you to maybe go, as I said, veer off to the left, veer off to the right, and just try something new. And I think that sport and business, that, as I said before, you have business people come to talk to sports people in seminars and vice versa. I think they're all interlinked. I think that, let's look at great management. You look at, say, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Sir Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, and I'm just using football as a simple example. You talked about ethos, you talked about plans, you talked about maybe a plan B, a plan C, which might be football substitutes, if you understand what I'm saying. We're all interlinked. So I just think that what I decided to do, and some people, and once again, your friendship group and your professional group can be very, very useful to you. they were the ones that probably said, Rodney, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Or Rodney, you're doing this at the moment. Why didn't you try this? Maybe I probably was reluctant earlier on, but slowly but surely I got there. I want to write more books, probably while I'm sitting on a Caribbean beach and relaxing, because books take up a part of your life. I mean, I wrote a book called Black Lions, which was about 20,000 words or something of that nature. And that took the best part of a year. I've got a good friend, Sean Wallace, one of the chasers, on the famous quiz show. I spoke to him recently, and he said he wrote a book and there was 1 million words in there. So it's all about commitment. And I keep continuing to repeat, if you have the passion for it, you can write the 20,000 words as I did for my book. Sean can write his 1 million words as well. And invariably, with a book, you end up with legacy.
Sorry, I forgot I muted myself. You mentioned the Black Lions book, and that was about the Black England football players, right?
Yes.
And their fight against racism. So again, I know you mentioned the fact that it was a revenue stream, but actually beyond just the fact that you're able to write a book, it's the purpose behind it, isn't it? It's the actual legacy that brings, because, you know, I think that's an amazing thing. It shines the light really on the experiences of those players, etc.
The interesting thing about that one, Ozzy, was that I was approached to write that book.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. For all of those listening, you can be going about your business, doing what you're doing, and if you're doing a good enough job, you might get an approach. And I got an approach from a publisher and said, how would you feel about writing a book and providing the narrative about the early days of black footballers in this country and bringing it right up to date? Maybe something I wouldn't have considered, but once I did get the approach, I thought, yeah, that sounds like something I can do. I'm happy I did it. Was a wonderful experience. And it's funny, when you're writing for online and print newspapers, to then write a book takes you, if you like, into the Champions League of writing, or the World Cup of writing. But I'm glad I did it. A wonderful experience, and holds me in good stead for the books I want to write in the future as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love the analogy, the World Cup of writing, right?
Yeah, I would always give you sports analogies to get my point over, because I mean, I think that sport is such a high-profile business, because that's what it is. It's business at the end of the day. You don't need to be an aficionado to understand certain things, you know, because as I said, passion, legacy, business, marketing. What's the chief aim in football? It's to score a goal, isn't it? And then we can all relate it to our own individual or family lives. What do people say? What's your goal in life? Where do you want to be? How do you want to succeed? So listen, yeah, I'll always give you sports analogy.
Fantastic. So, aside from the books that you wrote, I said at the top of the show that you were co-founder of the Football Blacklist. Do you want to explain a little bit about what the Football Blacklist is for people that are watching?
Yeah.
And also, kind of, again, that's kind of like an extra to your job, hence the entrepreneurship, right? So you're doing your job, but actually you're doing something extra.
The thinking behind the Football Blacklist is that people love lists, don't they? Whether it be the rich list that the Times produce, etc., etc. People want to know what other people are doing, what they're worth, what they're doing, etc., etc. So I sat down 10, 11 years ago with a colleague of mine, Leon Mann, respected journalist and broadcaster now, a man that's doing so much. And we sat down and we talked about, and we just kicking around a few things, and then we sort of both piped up together. Why don't we just, put a blacklist together? Oh, blacklist, that sounds negative, but it's not negative, actually. Some people didn't actually initially want us to use that name, but we said, no, we're going to go for it because it does what it says on the tin. And essentially what we do, courtesy of The Voice, every summer, once the football season is over, we publish this list. The different categories are obviously players, high profile, grassroots, administrators, management, coaching, entrepreneurs. So you have 30 people on this list. We publish the list in The Voice, and then we have a celebration. The Football Blacklist is now supported by the Premier League, which is another massive feather in our caps. And it's really to highlight the good work of people from our community within football who don't have the same profile as, say, a Raheem Sterling or a Troy Deeney, but are doing wonderful work behind the scenes. We just decided, myself and Leon, that we wanted to showcase those types of people. And Ozzy, and all I can say to you is that there is legacy in this one, without doubt. I mean, some people want to call it the football version of the Mobos. And I hope long after I've retired and Leon's retired that we can continue to have the Football Blacklist, that it can get bigger and better, and we can keep and continue to reward our people. So yeah, that's the thing behind it. People love to be on the list. They, and maybe more significantly, we also do now a sort of 30 under 30. So we list 30 young people under the age of 30 within football doing different things, who we believe in time will be the chief executives, the managers, the physiotherapists, the administrators within football in years to come. So that's a little snapshot of the Football Blacklist.
That's brilliant. I think that's really powerful as well, because I think we all know about the kind of the high profile people involved. We know those ones that we see in the newspapers, etc. But yeah, I think it's just a great initiative. And like you said, it's something that hopefully it will really, really last. Like, I think, has it been running like 12 years now? Has it been?
10, 11 years. Sometimes we haven't had the finance. So we've always done the list in The Voice and online, but we haven't always had the finance to have that celebratory evening. As I said a few months ago, the Premier League now support us superbly. And we give thanks for that. So yeah, I think maybe when things settle down, I will make sure that you get a personal invitation.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
I saw you with your Arsenal month there, so I know you're.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That'd be fantastic. No, thank you. I appreciate that.
One of those that while we can talk a lot, sometimes we just have to extend invitations and people come and see. And the great thing, Ozzy, maybe the final point about the blacklist, while we award people, while we list the 30 under 30 and we talk about the next generation, maybe the greatest thing about the occasion is the networking. People exchange business cards or email details or telephone contacts. And we've seen the event grow. And I know it sounds a bit corny, but I think as a community, and even if we want to bring in and come back to the George Floyd scenario, we've got to be stronger together. It's as simple as that. And I think what the Football Blacklist does, certainly for the football fraternity, is make us stronger. Because let's not kid ourselves. We still don't get the opportunities that we deserve and merit. So in many, many ways, we have to create our own opportunities.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think there are many people out there that really does resonate with. And I think that kind of leads perfectly onto my next question, which is, how has it been doing all of these things? Because like I said before, people like to be in that happy zone. Everything is fine. Don't polarize things. Don't call it the blacklist, or why are you only highlighting the black footballers, etc. And the conversation goes on and on regarding Black History Month as well. And before I pose my question, let me just say to the people watching, if you have a question that you'd like to ask Rodney, please pop it in the comments section, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer that as we go on with our discussion. But yeah, how has that been, Rodney, in terms of just, you've got the idea, that's great. We can see the reality of it. You've written the books, and the Football Blacklist is there. It's there consistently. And again, you said you've got the backing of the Premier League. I think you've got backing of the FA. You've got a lot of backing behind you. Was that easy? Was it just as simple as, we're going to do this and it's fine? Or how have you dealt with the issues if they come up?
I think that, those watching that maybe wanting to go into business and set up their own entrepreneurial things, you have to be brave enough to receive a no or two or three or four or five. one of my favorite words for those that know me is tenacity. It's like a dog with a bone, isn't it? If you give a dog a bone in the park or on the street, that dog will not let that bone go because he believes it belongs to him or to her. And I suppose in terms of the backlist, Leon, especially, and myself have just been tenacious. If you want to go into business, if you want to set up anything for yourself, you have to be, listen, you have to understand that rejection is just part of everyday life. What is important is how you react to it. And I think that's where, as I said, listen, many, many moons ago, and it hasn't changed that much. It is a slightly better. I can go to a sporting event and be the only black journalist in the house. Did that put me off? Did it make me feel inferior? No, in fact, it made me puff out my chest a little bit more and say, I'm good enough, probably even better than some of the others here, and I can do my job as well. And I take that mantra with me wherever I go. And I think those listening need to do that as well, because you can't have a life where there's no rejection. That's fantasy island, that is. The most important thing is how you deal with it. Has it been easy? It's had its down points. But if you ask me to do it all over again, I would do it all over again. And as I said right at the top of the piece, I never thought that you'd want to interview me years on and talk about my legacy and what I've done. One, because generally I've never even sat down and thought about it in that regard, honestly, because I've always, I come from a Caribbean household where working hard and just getting on with it, sometimes with very or no reward, was the norm. So in many ways, I'm still using those disciplines to get me through. So yeah, it's not always been easy, but it's not always been hard either. I wouldn't change too much. And I do feel that if people have tuned into me now, in the past and in the future, and can get a little bit of a bright spark, job done.
Excellent. That's really good. I think tenacity really is the key there, isn't it? It's just that not really accepting the no as a no. We hear it all the time in business, whether it's pitching a business idea, applying for funding, or trying to partner with another business or anything. A no, it kind of gets you to where you are, doesn't it? And I think that everybody kind of wants that success. They want to be in that place where they've got the accolades and the awards, etc. But maybe people aren't so happy to go through what it takes to get there.
That's the issue, Ozzy. What I would say to those listening, you got to, if you get a no on the first instance, if your second and third approach could actually be successful, but you've denied yourself potentially the opportunity if you don't go again. And what I would say is this, you have to provide your own fuel. Cars and lorries and trains will run on fuel, and if there was no fuel in them, they wouldn't work at all. And that's what I've had to do, and that's what others around me have had to do. I think a good core group around you is important. It doesn't have to be massive, but it has to be vital. It has to be tuned into you. They can sometimes, people around you can provide you with fuel as well. So, no, it's not been easy, but the fact that I've said I would go through it again if I had to tells you everything.
Yeah, definitely. I think that definitely tells you everything, because it's never easy in those down points. I know the kind of goes over. It must be very difficult after 30 odd years within an industry to kind of really pick out and unpick those difficult points. But I think the main thing is actually you pushed past and you did it. You actually achieved it. I think that's really
what
good.
I'm doing now is helping other people push past. So when I get an invite from someone like yourself and others, they say, "Rod, can you just sit down and have a chat and talk to a few people?" As long as my diary permits, I'll go for it, because I know what it's like when you want to talk to someone. I know what it's like when you want that other role model to help you out. And if you don't have that, it can flatten you a little bit. And then, as I said, you've got to create your own fuel. But here's me having done what I've done for so long. Why not? If someone reaches out to me, my schedule means that sometimes I can't get back to people the way they would love me to. But I take the instance of me and you getting together. You reached out to me, you gave me a couple of dates. Obviously it helps that we're all locked down. Um,
Yeah.
but we chose a date, we agreed upon it. You know, superb. And you know, as I said at the top of the piece, happy to try and share anything that I've got.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. And before we close out, I'd just like to ask, what does the future hold for the Voice newspaper, for Football Blacklist, and for Rodney Hinds himself? You know,
Oh,
what's
yeah.
because having that lifetime achievement award, that's kind of a big deal, right? And I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
it could potentially make you think of maybe winding down. But I want to know what's next. What's coming up next?
In terms of the Voice newspaper, I would say get ready for a serious online presence. The last 3 or 4 months, and any media house worth its salt has had its online numbers go through the roof. We've been part of that, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. So I think the Voice is in good hands. I think that our social media and online presence is just going to get bigger and bigger. In terms of the Football Blacklist, almost ditto. I can see it. I can see that going on. Listen, when football does return to some normality, like the world itself, it will still be a wonderful thing. And I think that football, when it does come back, and sport generally, will be a real catalyst, a real positive catalyst when we can all support it again and go to games and attend sport. As for me personally, I think I touched on it earlier. Probably slow down a little bit. I've thoroughly enjoyed what I've done. You've referenced the Lifetime Achievement Award. To those that made it possible, I say thank you very much. But Ozzy, what that's done for me, and I go back full circle and talk about passion, rather than slow down, put my slippers on and get the pipe out after that award, it actually motivated me to go again, to work harder, to work smarter, etc., etc. So some books definitely to be written. I'd love to maybe do an autobiography about my life. Even if I'm the only one that reads it, I think it'll be interesting. And maybe some sports documentaries. Yeah, that's probably the thing. I've got an eye for a camera, watch a lot of TV, seen a lot of good documentaries, seen a lot of poor documentaries. I think maybe with my contacts experience, I could put something together or a few things together that people would find interesting.
I love that. Absolutely love it. And look, I would read your book. All the viewers would read your book as well. So definitely write that, because I think it's just important. I was very passionate. You saw the email exchanges about getting you on, because I feel like it's almost like, to me, like a diamond in the rough, right? A lot of us, we know about the people, the high profile people, the people that maybe you've interviewed, but they don't necessarily think about the person doing the interview. And maybe people might not have even heard of you and
right.
realize the amount of people that you've actually interviewed. You know, and I think it's not just worth celebrating, but also just highlighting and actually there's things to learn from you. You know, you've shared tonight, and I really appreciate everything you've shared. But I think, you know, when from my culture, I'm Nigerian, I'm married to a Jamaican, and our cultures are very similar. But in the terms of learning from your elders, and just looking at who has gone before, what have they done, and how did they do it. Actually, when you have an idea, what your legacy does for me is it actually tells me, okay, if I have an idea, I can actually do it.
Absolutely.
And actually, it can be successful. Here is somebody who's done it, and there's the proof. You know,
And
I think that's amazing. And
that's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you for all those listening. Hopefully I'll see you when it's all safe and we can meet up. And you can come to the Football Blacklist, have a look and see it for yourself. How about that?
Yeah, that would be fantastic, most definitely.
Good.
And I'm definitely looking forward to documentaries as well, because I love a good documentary.
Good.
But thank you so much, Rodney, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, guys, that has been Leaving a Legacy. Please let me know how you feel the show went. Have you learned something today? Have you been fueled into thinking, right, okay, I'm going to do it now. I'm actually going to write that book, or actually I'm going to start that initiative. I hope you have, because I tell you, my fire has been lit tonight, learning from Rodney Hinds. He's interviewed all the people they mentioned, the Williams sisters, he's interviewed Kobe Bryant, he's interviewed all the footballers you could think of, and cricketers, etc. And he's written books. He's started a football blacklist, and he's done all kinds of things beyond his job. He's definitely an example of an entrepreneur. So whether it's you starting up your business and thinking about your legacy, or whether it's you're in a job and you're thinking about doing something else, definitely take an example from Rodney and follow him. See the scrolling banner at the bottom there. He's on social media. Just search for Rodney Hinds. You'll be able to find him, and support what he's doing at The Voice as well. Subscribe to the newspaper, watch the content online, because as he said, we are stronger together, and that is for everybody. So I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. If you want to get involved in this week's competition, the competition is going to be up on the website. So you can see scrolling down at the bottom, go to edgewayedu.com/competition. The competition is going to be refreshed and available from tomorrow. So be sure to go there. Guys, next week we're going to be talking with Rachel Corson, who is going to be talking about her company Afrocentrics. She is a co-founder of that, and we're going to be talking about positioning yourself in the market and actually turning your idea into a reality. Some of you, maybe you've got an idea for a product and you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, there's so many other people out there that are doing these things. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how to get over that and actually create your product and go from concept to reality. So join us next week, and don't forget about Forex 101 this Thursday here in the Honing Block at 3 p.m. We'll be talking all things Forex. If you want to know what it is to be a trader, come and join us for that session there. But guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have yourselves a blessed night, and I will see you next time on Tuesday Night Live.